Hello, everybody. I hope you all can hear me well, at least for the time being, since I'm trying to get ready. Hello. Can can anyone hear me? I want to know because anyway. Thank you very much. Um, just letting you know, this is gonna be some more like a funny professor talks on a whiteboard type of stream. We're gonna start exactly at 10, and yeah, I have my document. I'm gonna try to not read all of it because my document for this is 25 pages of absolute gobbledygook. I will not recommend it. It's also all written in Spanish, so I'm gonna be translating like. Oh yeah, it's very interesting. How you get used to that sort of stuff very quickly. Oh yeah. Hello, thank you. Yeah, it's a very simple premise, but I like it a lot because it has a lot of have like institution versus creativity versus what is canon versus what is not canon, and how you get from A to B. And it's a very simple topic because it really boils to, not to spoil a lot of it. It really boils down to when does the institution, in this case Homestuck, is no longer fulfilling the desires that you as a person. And that's basically what it boils down to. And the interaction between what the institution canon is and what you as a person are. I really like. I really like talking about this type of topic. Um, just making sure the music is good. Uh, because I made this account eons ago. Hello, I made this account forever ago. Um, Hello, everybody. Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, no, I. So I used to have like very old, like old names. Then I still have them right around. I just don't bother with changing them because then I will have to change every link. Maybe one day though. Um, Hello. Get comfortable. We're setting up. Those eggs are flying, by the way. Like overnight, people were like, "Hey, I want that golden. I want 20 eggs, thank you." And I was like, "That's crazy." Thanks, I made it myself in 5 minutes. This is from last year. I keep all the setup from last year, except I changed it a little bit, so now we're in a whiteboard class. Hello. Right, just gonna wait until it hits 10 before we start, but for anybody initiated, for everybody who knows, we are going to abort the mystery between turning a character in and a canon character into an OC, and I'm gonna bring examples, and most importantly, I'm gonna expose you to what I done to my to certain Homestuck characters, and I'm very sorry about that. Regardless. Ultimately, why would you wanna do that? Why would anybody want to? Why would you want to do that? I use sumo stock as a point of reference because a lot of people, that's where it happens the most. I can draw, I promise, I swear to God I can draw, but Stockholm, more like the Stockholm syndrome, which is fun fact, it doesn't exist actually. So hello, thank you. But yeah, just waiting an extra minute and then we can start properly. But not to get on technical. If you have any questions in words, I try to keep it simple, but there is some technical words that I use. Because again, this was my college thesis paper, and even after simplifying it from 50 pages to 25, it's still like heavy-handed on the ways that I spoke about it years and years ago. No, it doesn't. Yeah, the reason I did all of this is because I made So when I graduated into college, into the show I graduated to college in 2017 with a major in what we call sociology, science. Actually, it's science of communication. But my thesis was sociology, and has branches in how do I say this in Spanish? Anthropology, like in English, anthropology level. And the whole concept of my career was science of communication. Basically, boils down to exploring the bizarre interactions of this world. So, how do I explain this? For example, we as a society, as forms of communication, we say good morning to each other in passing by, just walking. The anomaly of communication will be, what happens if you say good morning and someone else stops, this random person stops and actually explains to you what good morning they're having? That will be an anomaly. And that anomaly is exactly what I like studying. That was my whole career, and then I had a minor on a minor major in 2D animation and another one in graphic design because I am a monster, and that's a laser. But so when that was the career path I chose, my end goal was figuring doing animation, but at the same time, because this allowed me to explore specifically with help of my professor what was anomalies on the internet. At the time, I was very invested in Batman, so I did it on Batman fandom, and then today I decided to translate it to the Homestuck fandom because it's actually very similar, more than you think. Well, let's get started a little bit. on that. So to not go too far from the trees, it's a existing phenomenon that comes from the idea of and it's a very used word now, and that I like. It all falls into the word bears, and you probably heard it a million times, and you're probably tired of it at this point. But it all falls into bears, alternative universes, and why they happen. This study was conducted into the fact that a bears is the clash of institution and communities. What does institution have to do with this? What does institution mean? Think about it this way. Institution it equals canon. This means that basically institution and canon are the great rulers. Basically, almost like the whole meme that is like, oh, why do you need approval from the boss? Isn't that Catholicism? That's basically what it is. Canon creates a set of rules, a box, if you will, that people have to adhere to, and people do use it as a playground to do things. That is where we as consumers, as people, part of the institution, in this case, we created a subdivision, which is fandom. And you think, oh, fandom is contrary to the institution, right? Wrong. Fandom follows the institution rules very closely, may I say. Fandom actually becomes its own institution. To be completely honest, it's very interesting how, because we all have probably dealt with it, how fandom has its own unspoken rules. There is things that you cannot do, and I don't mean like, your headcanon is invalid. I mean like straight up. What is straight up? Who, for example, like the kids are a razor, right? And for the longest time, and it is still now, the white it means yellow hair. The white on the kids means yellow hair. The white it means yellow hair, and like that is one of the rules of the fandom institution, is that despite there has never been anything anywhere that it doesn't say it can be red hair or light brown hair, tan, any other type of hair, it's always gonna be yellow. Yeah, that's the assigned blood. That is how fandom becomes its own institution that follows the rules of canon. But it also gives a little bit of more freedom now, because fandom is is subworks of canon, and especially in Homestuck, there is a culture of wanting to be approved by Hussey at the time, especially because he will, even earlier on, he will hire people from the fandom, and you meet and whatever you want to become canon, especially because he will, the way the thing was so hectic and it will work. The way he will work is, besides getting people from the fandom, was say, I need assets, and then people from the fandom that were already in this other group will give him the assets, and therefore creating this kind. And he wouldn't really care. He will just pick them at random. And that this created a parent feeling towards it, because, for example, in other fandoms, creators can just draw whatever the fuck they want, and they are never gonna get moved into the institution. It's not gonna happen. This just doesn't happen. There is a lot of places and fandoms that do, and they are more indie projects. And even the indie projects don't even do that. Homestuck was built on the idea that your creation could become part of it. And that's why fandom itself, Homestuck fandom specifically, it's also its own institution with its own silent rules that you are supposed to follow. Hello, Junaya. Now, what happens when you don't fall into these rules? A lot of people, like me, create AUs. And this is not a verse. This is an alternate universe wholesale where you make the kids whatever you want. Now, Human Stock is the most famous of all of them. But here's the thing. This is what differentiates one between the other. An AU still follows the rules of the institution, or the fandom, or the canon. Because you're still playing within, despite that you are giving yourself a new setting, you're playing within the rules set up by the fandom and the canon. Because you can say, this is my AU, where the trolls are kids and the kids are trolls. But David Strider still has shades. But Karkat is still a grumpy mess, but this and this and that. You're still playing within the boundaries of what was set up. When you blood swap, is the same ordeal. Despite the changes that you are giving to yourself, you are still playing within the boundaries that have been established between the fandom and the institution. It is a famous blood swap, for example. Let's think or a famous AO. Let's think Aquarium Stock for a second. Let's think Aquarium Stock for a second. That has its own mini fandom. And by the idea of trying to escape that, you become it again. Because then what people do, people that like this AU, they go ask the creator about the AU, and the new creator of this AU becomes the institution one more. And you become trapped in this circle again of just following an institution, even despite trying to basically escape from it with an AO. It just becomes this giant circle of, so when does this break happen? And that is basically when our Cs are created. I know we're only 10 minutes in, but this is basically it. You can keep doing this circle over and over and over and over ad infinitum. Create an AU of an AU of an AU of an AU until you are tired and the cows goes home and there is absolutely nothing you can do about it. And you think, oh, I have an OC at this point, right? Wrong. Because you are still playing by the rules of these. Where is the breaking point? When does this happen? Where does you think, oh, this is no longer AU? When does your brain say, the AU doesn't work anymore, I want this to be mine? Go back to the institution canon fandom situation. Let's get a little simple right now. Characters mutate when you are in an online fandom. They will always mutate. In this case, the fandom institution, this has global ideas of what a character will look like. And a lot of the time, most people agree with them. And even if you disagree, you start exactly like the breaking point. And when you start The breaking point is literally when you start disagreeing more about what the institution, in this case the fandom, has allowed, or when you don't agree with a canon. It's either canon or fandom that creates this breaking point. As a creator, we are creators of society, of collective creation. There is a lot of strong people out there that draw for themselves. But we as society like to be accepted and like our headcanons to be like our ideas to be like. And in a fandom community that is set up like Homestuck, having your own micro world is common, but you still want it to be liked despite everything. There is a point in your creative process that you start personalizing more to yourself. When you start thinking, why doesn't this character work more like me? Even if that doesn't the case, that it turns to be the most common situation. When you write a character, you start giving them more of your attributes. You give them more of your depression, you give them more of your issues, you give them more of your personality, just by sheer volume of how much you invest in a character. The rewriting of this character is what is part of change. Is part of this change. You keep rewriting the story to fit better. It's a sliding slope in which, well, the more you add to this character, especially if it's a side character, you start thinking there is more to this that can be added, but doesn't fit within the barriers of the institution. The institution, be fandom or otherwise of established, has rules. And when this character no longer fits, and you think you can do more than that, that is when it all breaks. When everybody has this barrier, where we all want to work with and be accepted within the institution of the fandom or community or what have you. When you decide that enough is enough, and you don't want to work, you are gonna be your own institution now. Exactly that. You divorce, the more you add to a character, you divorce yourself, but you're still working within boundaries. Once you decide that you want to become the institution, you want to become the ruler of this world, you want to become the ruler of this character, that's when the divorce happens. The more you invest on a character, the more you separate yourself from the original idea. Another point of example is that the more, and that is the positive outcome, because the least positive outcome is when the institution, say the comic, starts disappointing you, where the fandom starts disappointing you, when the AU starts disappointing you. The creator of the AU is not updating fast enough. The characters are not going in the place that you like. The writer doesn't like the character the same way you do. Your character gets killed off. The breaking point for the institution can be both positive and negative. Like I said, it can be that you decide that the character that you're working on, you like them so much that you want to take them and want to do things with them that are not allowed within the fandom or comic idea. That is a positive association with it. You like this so much, you want to do with it. You want to mold them, you want to explore them with them. The negative one is similar but close, and they sometimes are together. It's like a Venn diagram almost. You like this character so much, you are so disappointed and angry the way that they're treated, you're just gonna take them wholesale and steal them and file the numbers off and say, you know what? This is mine now. This is my little guy. No one is gonna hurt you anymore, guy. This is my little guy. That's and this happens a lot. Homestuck is interestingly resilient to this because, like I said before, people will do fan adventures, AUs, of AUs, timelines, versus and more branching paths, rewrites. More branching paths than you can imagine. Thanks for that. Sorry, my internet is so slow. Anyway. Fan Adventures AOs versus timeline rewrites. All of that makes the OC an anomaly. It is very difficult because a person will work in an AU, do a new timeline swap, do a new verse, rewrite the whole of Pester Quest, do a whole comic. And this is not a bad thing. People are allowed to do these things. It just makes it a lot harder for people to make their own OC out of this because they still want to work with the institution. They all want to go. It all goes back to this, to the fact that Homestuck was built for the idea that everything you work on, everything that you like, could eventually go back into canon. We all work under the idea of this approval, and therefore it is very difficult to divorce yourself. It is incredibly difficult to find a way out of this. There are other fan spaces that have this a lot faster. Oh yeah, everybody's allowed to do this. I think it's particularly fun, but the way that this is funded, it is set up itself to always go back to the original, because we're all fed we all have ingrained it into the back of our brains that maybe, just maybe, we'll recognize. And this is especially prevalent with something like Vast Error. Vast Error at this point is so big and so recognized. Yes, it is an AU. It's in its own story at this point, but they are canon non-canon at this point. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Is it cutting out? Let me figure out. Oh. Alright, do let me know if there is actually problems, because I know my internet isn't the best. Yeah. In other fandoms, for example, I come from the Batman fandom, and the way this applied this was very interesting. So, in Batman, you get stuck in a weird bizarre middle that it's what I will call the vast error middle, in which you have taken everything you want from canon, but instead of taking the rules of Homestuck or everything in between, you do your own rules. The only thing you take is the aesthetic methods and some of the main principalities. By main principalities, I mean, in Bastardo's case, it's the gray skin, the horns, the blood colors, the basic rules that will make a Homestuck universe. And they have wholesale reapplied them into a way that fits the narrative the more, creating their own stories. This is what I will call they call the verse, in which they are not an alternative universe on Homestuck, because they are too different to be that. They are not a recolor, they are not anything a retold story. They are their own story that takes all of the values of the original and wrap them until they are like their own idea. I think, as an example of what they are, Vast Error is probably one of the best cases I've seen of what owning your own fan characters is like, because they are not. Their verb is so different that they might not even be a verb. Their rules are so different. Their construction is so different that you will be able to read it so independently from Homestuck. It's why it's its own its own institution and its own canon. But it's at the same time, you can tell this came from Homestuck. These are OCs with still an association to what it came from, but not tied to it the same way you will be tied to it if you had a fan adventure, an AU, a rewrite, a new timeline, etc. etc. With comic books, these comic books take especially lately, they take the everything is canon approach. Everything is canon. And at the same time, nothing is. But it also means that everything that was ever written about comics and will ever be written about comics is canon until they said otherwise. But it won't be decided otherwise because they are making it so they are all canon in their own universes. But the whole box is just a never-ending expanded of toys because they cannot have a single writer. It's having a single writer creates an entity that you can devise to. Comics, well, there is a canon in comics because everything is canon in comics, and they are trying every day to make it more canon in comics. You don't need the validation from the institution to do whatever you want, which forces people to just do the same thing that Vast Error did, but with their comic characters when they write them. Because you can never get recognition from the institution. You take the characters, you mix them in your own box, and then you create your own verse. You make your own OCs within that are still tied to, but do not work for the idea that you will be recognized one day in Homestuck. In this case, Homestuck. Honestly, I come from this as a way to say that it doesn't matter what you do. Like, I encourage both creating for a fandom and creating for yourself. Just be aware of what you want to do. Also, I encourage people that if they feel afraid and they just do the thing that I say a lot, which is file the serial numbers off. You really think your story can go beyond the rules of canon, the rules of what the thing that it came from, go for it. Give it a shot. I think it's worth it. If you think that it works better between the boundaries set by canon or fandom, then stay there. It's a difficult choice, but I think it really depends on what you want to do. The time will pass and you will get experience regardless of what you do, but it's about what you want to do with it. Now, let's go back to more technical terms. Let me grab my notes for that. Oh, while I look for my notes, I want you all to look at my chains while I'm at it. You know this guy. You know, you all know this guy. I think I don't have no introductions, right? So, this is going into more an anecdotal way, but let me explain how it happened to me so you can see a more applied version of what happens more of the time. Let me see. Where is this? Up closer. So, how did my own breaking point, my explanation go? If I could find it. The only thing I kept was the purple. Anyway. So, what happened? Back in the day, I used to be a role player. As many of us have been, maybe. And I roleplayed a lot in Tumblr blogs. Yeah, the scarf. I met my significant other during that time, and we roleplayed a lot of those groups. Now, during the longest time, I'm talking 2-3 years, it was still this. For like 2-3 years, I just wholesale was roleplaying this guy, and he didn't really change much. However, then eventually I ended up in an AU called Purgata. I don't know if you heard it, where it was all 90s, 20s. So it was adapting that to 90s, 20s. That was my first step out of the box. That was my first step away from the canon. It was my first step out, was 90s 20. And then I moved in to follow with the rules of the roleplay world. On the roleplay world, if the rules of Homestuck really apply, except for like the base relationships, but it was more important to follow the rules of the roleplay world. Eventually, as roleplays group do, they collapse, broke, gone. And now, me and our friends had our characters that we were playing for years just floating in the wind with no real rhyme or reason. That's when we decide, hey, let's roleplay with each other. Let's just do it without the roleplay group, right? Let's just start doing that. And we will watch Solitaire, and we decide, hey, let's put, in my case, sorry, that in others like Rose and whatever, let's put all of these guys in Solitaire, see what happens. Let's put all of these guys in this other area. Let's put all of these guys in this other area. Let's do Transformers this time. We just watch Pacific Rim. How about we do that? At that point, you can exactly see what happened to us. a while later, we are really just sit. I think it was around the time the novel came out. The black and white one came out. And we are sitting there like, wow, it's crazy that we don't have to like worry about this because we have our own AUs and stuff that we work with. That's when we realized that we didn't depend on this anymore. We didn't depend on canon to have fun. We didn't depend on what the institution was saying. We didn't depend on Homestuck anymore for these characters. That's why we made a choice to just turn them into OCs. Because at that point, once you've been doing this enough, you realize once you don't need this, once you don't need this, that's where the break happens. Once you think, hey, I'm good. For me, it was a mainly positive experience. I have friends that, on the contrary, have been incredibly burned out from Homestuck. A lot of the time, drama can get you, and a lot of the time, people get salty and stuff. And Homestuck has incredibly volatile times, in which even the canon heads get really aggressive with people. And they have let the fandom stressed, scared, not wanting to deal with it. But they didn't want to leave their creators behind. So they took all of this work and they took it away. The only thing that came back is the horns. And I do it from sentimentality. Oh yeah. Sky is right. Sky knows what this is about. So the reason that I titled this panel from human to troll and back away and again is because ultimately despite how much you wanna link yourself away from what it was, there is always gonna be one link. One. There's gonna be at least one. And you're always gonna wanna come back to the place that gave you so much of everything. Which is, in this case, Homestuck. Must be a lot of people, if you ended up with bad terms even then, a lot of the time, because you know where this came from. You can tell no one where your OC came from. But you will know that it came from Homestuck. You will always know. And one day, you will see it again, and you will remember all that you created for it. Everything that your life has become. Everything that you've done. Because one day you decided to pick up a little guy that was your favorite character. And you will decide to return to it. And see what happens after that. Now the character might be wholly different at the point, and it will not make sense anymore. But returning to it is always a given. Homestuck has always been on fire. Yeah, I do try to not think about it that much. It's an interesting subject, though. Oh, let me kill the audio a little bit. That should be a little better. I'm sorry about that. Like I said at the beginning, I was gonna approach this like a professor, and honestly, if I have to draw properly, I will literally not be able to take. I will not be able to speak. I cannot draw and speak at the same time that well. but if I had my way, I would. Thank you. Um, yeah. Like I said before, it is more simple than it looks like, but yeah, it all boils down to when is the point that you decide that the original work, the institution, the creator, whatever the paradigm you're working with can no longer provide for you as you would want it to. There is a call to be official, and if you have any questions, do let me know. I'm trying to scroll to my thing. By the way, this is a lot of this has existed. This is more of a fun fact than anything. This has existed since the Natsons long time. And I think that one of the first registered cases is the whole Sherlock, not the BBC Sherlock. Good lord, the original novels. How people will mail Conan Doyle what they will think it happened on the story. And he hated that. He hated that so fucking much. He really did. Caparisians are an interesting phenomenon to me. Caparisians are literally, and I mean, they are literal blank slates. There is so little of them, and there is so, like, even deciding what a caparation is, you are already deviating from the norm. My reasoning from why there is so little caparations is a double-edged sword. One is because they are so empty and blank that by the time you're done making a caparation OC, you already have a non-OC. Because there is so little about them and their personality. There is so little work with them. By the time you've done the work of the backstory, the personality, how they will interact, you have an OC that requires very little grounding into what Homestuck is. So most people, by the time, instead of keeping them as carapace, they just peel them off. The other, and that is exactly why there is so little of them. People that work in the intermission have the more likely volume of deciding that this is too small, that this is unsatisfactory, that this could be better. People that like characters, intermission characters, leprechauns, minor characters, they are the most likely to be disappointed first with what the institution, which is Homestuck, has to offer. And the fandom of this also likes to operate very closely with, as I explained before, with what is canon. And because there is not a lot of canon, they just leave. They just leave fast. They just grab their own characters. Because this is so empty. That's why it's very hard to find consort characters, or caparations, or leprechauns. They are such an empty canvas, but by the time you're done giving them a personality, they are no longer the same character that they started at. Good luck, Yanaya. I'll be with you in a minute. I need to take breakfast after this. Oh yeah, I've been I've been a part of the intermission fandom for like years and years. But by the time I was done personalizing traits, that's where the 3 in my name really came from. I used to had an OC. There is a, I will admit, there is a sweet middle of why a lot of people stay, and is side character. It depends on the person, but a lot of the time, side characters tend to be also lifted OCs. Um, I have a personal respect for people who can just like take all of these ideas and say very quickly, "Hey, this is mine now," and then you leave. But yeah, like that's why I think this. Oh yeah. Um, there is a lot of work you can do with a lot of what with carapaces, but like I said, while working within the real Homestuck stuff. But like, you're still doing a lot of heavy lifting that the text isn't give you. The thing with carapaces is that the text itself does not give you anything, almost anything to work with. Well, it does. It gives you a lot, but it also gives you very little somehow. And you're doing so much heavy lifting that at some point it's just like, that's why a lot of people just break and take it. Yeah, that's pretty much it. It's like in the Feld, people that like the Feld have to do a lot of more work that Hussey put into it. Yeah, we're almost done. I do appreciate for you guys to stay in all this time. Let me grab more notes. Going back to another theoretical point, a lot of these also can boil down between what we call flat characters and round characters. You can argue that a lot of Homestuck characters are flat characters. At least, especially if they die very fast. You can argue Nepeta is a flat character, you can argue Ekis is a flat character, you can argue the Carapaces, despite their timing, and are flat characters. What we want as people are round characters. But we cannot all be Dave. Tragically, we cannot all be Dave. Or Dirk, or whoever. We cannot all have the main character. We cannot all be John. Even though in theory you could argue John is a flat character, and that is a very interesting thesis that I will want to see someone tackle. Because despite how much time we spend with John, he doesn't have that much distinguishable situations or personalities. You could argue that despite everything, he's not 3D as a character. But that's nor here nor there. You didn't hear from me. Another reason why you will turn, and there is a rude redundancy to it, there is more redundancy than when we go deeper into this, is because we all want Dave. But our little guys are just made of paper. So we have to build the construction ourselves. We have to build the house ourselves. We have to give them what they didn't have. And all of these that didn't exist before, the part of the iceberg that is under in the water, all the work that you created, is yours. That is yours. And I'm not saying, oh, just take it. I mean, I'm going somewhere. So when the main canon character part, faces criticism, you're fine with it. Maybe a little bit cheap because someone said your favorite character is a piece of shit or whatever. But you understand. because that is the thing that the original writer wrote. But say you wrote a justification why. You made a word of why this character, why they're like this. You put the time and effort to explain their whole backstory, to explain why they will do all of those things. And then criticism comes that it's not even aiming at you. It's not about how the original character was written. And you react to it. Because inadvertently, your foundation is being attacked. The thing that makes the character important to you, the thing that makes it in 3D, that is being inadvertently attacked by people that don't even know that. And this will happen again and again and again and again. Not even in purpose. Just because you are linked to a character, you are so attached to this foundation that you build. And it's a little difficult for people to realize, hey, this is not towards me, this is all towards the original work. But you see the depth. You see the depth of what could be. You see all the relationships they could have. You see all the work they could be. You have to fight the status quo at this point. You have changed the paradigm on your own head. And this is also another reason why people decide that it's no longer worth it. Because we go back to the institution. If you like a character that the fandom doesn't like, you are no longer getting the satisfaction because of the pellets that are being thrown every day towards what you. This is not towards you or your ability as a writer. This is not even towards your canons. But you want to see depth in something that doesn't have it. Therefore, you're more bound to leave. Take it away. Because this is not the place where you will get the acceptance or the validation that you want. This is the place you will get the canon from. Now, you're able to endure because a lot of people do. There is always a chance. Again, in Homestuck, there is always a chance. Because to this day, Homestuck team keeps picking people from the sidelines, whether you're popular or otherwise, to work on canon. So there's always a chance that all of these, maybe one day you will have Dave the Egg. Maybe one day. I think it's just very interesting. Alright, let's see. Let's get to my... What's up in the conclusions tab? Good lord. I'm gonna be completely honest, I haven't even covered everything that we have here. Again, it's 25 pages. I only gave myself an hour. I am going to die. Right. Yeah. The versus your characters, the canon, everything is highly competitive. And this not only applies to homes, that applies to everything. There is a bit of a competition, whether intentional or not, to be appreciated and liked, to become the new institution, to become the new Basara. Because we all want to, in some way or another, we all want to be the ones that make the rules. And in some way or another, we are going to achieve it in several ways. By being a popular AU, by being the new Bears, the new Homestuck, not Homestuck, or by being our own creators. The methodology of this has been explored to the stock, and despite everything, I'm not saying this is good or bad. I want to leave that clear. I don't want people to believe, oh, why are you making this your OC? Because there is people that come with that incident, and it's just doesn't sit right with me. Because working with what is good and cozy and known, working with the tools that you're given from a universe that you like, there is nothing wrong with that. At the same time, there is nothing wrong with that, with creating your own thing, because you were disappointed in some, or you just thought you could like love them more or whatever. And this is not even touching into the redesign perspective of it. Redesigning character is also part of this logic, but I think it will be a little repetitive to go into the whole this to this again. I do think that, to name drop it again, human stock is probably one of the easiest venues for that to happen. Because ultimately, you get to send the character that has never been to school, and you're gonna send them to the university. And the whole thing gets out of control. I do think that there is also a deep talk to be made about representation and what you think it is. A lot of OCs are made because you decide that you have hit canon a thing for a long time. A lot of things for me, I'm a person of color, and this is a little more personal as well. We all decide that at some point we want to see the representation. I suppose not everybody, but most of us like to see it. But despite how much we may try, certain characters are just never going to be confirmed one way or the other. And I bring this up. Remember how the artists for Briska and Roxy did like the hair, did 3C hair? The backlash they got for that was immeasurable. It was a surprising amount of backlash that they got at the time. I understand that it might have not been what everybody wanted of it, but there is someone being joined and putting what they liked into it. Honestly, I respect that choice. If that is a new canon, that is a new canon. However, if you have seen anything from Homestuck 2, that or any other reference, the hair has not stayed the same way it was expected in Pester Quest. Which mean, what does that mean? It basically means that despite that small canonization that the 3C hair had, it really didn't stay within the consciousness and the fandom institution rules. It didn't really like cement itself, because nowadays the hair is as flat as always has been. And when that happens, and when even a canon, a big person, gets a sort of treatment, and their situation doesn't stay, not real, again, not a problem necessarily. Again, canon is whatever everybody wants it to be, blah, 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 blah. A lot of people decide that, hey, waiting from inclusion for the big head is not worth it. I have to do that myself. And that's when more OCs are born. Hey, again, to reiterate the point that is old at this point, and I'm glad you all stayed to listen to it 20 times. The moment the institution, the canon, the Homestuck is no longer satisfying to you to work within, that is where you create an OC. That is the phenomenon that was discovered. That is the phenomenon that I like covering every single time. It has infinite variables. It has infinite takes. But I enjoy it nonetheless. And it's a very simple process to grasp, and now you can see it with new eyes. And wonder yourself, what was the moment where I didn't have, when I wasn't fed, the canon wasn't feeding me enough? Or what was the moment this other person canon wasn't feeding them enough? Oh yeah, like whenever you make stuff, you do have to consider how other people take it. But ultimately, it's up to the creator because you are gonna become the big bad boss with the rules. Oh god, no, he's real. Thank you for staying in the chat. Um, Maybe one day I'll see of translator my thesis so you guys can enjoy it because it's still in Spanish, and and I'm too lazy to translate like 50 pages. But I'm sorry if I was rambly. This is a dear topic of mine, and I simplified it a little too much, I think. I thank you all for being here. Uh, I really mean that I really mean it when I said I thank everyone for being here. If you have any more questions, my DMs are open. Again, I will see of translating this either manually or just shove it on Google Translator. This is a topic very dear to my heart, and I will talk about this hours and hours and hours. You can find me on Hermanco nowadays. I actually cannot even say I have so many usernames. This is actually kind of a funny joke. So, thank you for staying. Please enjoy the convention. I'll be around because I'm a moderator, so I have a lot to moderate. So I'll see you guys in the convention. Please have fun. Please enjoy yourself, and don't forget to say nice things to your fellow Congoers. I'll be looking around, and yeah. All right. Thank you. Have a good day.